Hi there, and welcome to our short series on firewall configuration in the age of the coronavirus. Today we're going to spend a couple of minutes looking at credential theft and how you can optimize your Palo Alto Networks firewall to guard against it. On a typical day, even only a few short months ago, you might have found me here in the office interacting with my colleagues, or at a luncheon delivering a keynote address for customers and partners. I'd very often find myself at a customer site giving a presentation. You might even, very occasionally, find me sitting at my desk in the office working away. I have started to notice recently that there have been a few interesting fashion choices around. I also started to notice that customer presentations started to take on a little bit of a different look and feel. And now the new reality for me and my colleagues and customers is to connect into our networks from home. This means that there are a lot of devices and technologies connecting remotely into our networks, probably a lot more than we'd be used to throughout a normal day. We can only hope that all of these remote connections are being thoroughly checked. And for the most part, they are, especially with the right firewall infrastructure in place. Firewall infrastructure that can manage my connections, not just when I'm connecting remotely, but also all of my actions when I'm actually on the network. We all know that even a trusted connection can deliver an exploit and ultimately install malware into our networks. And given that those devices that are connecting remotely are probably more vulnerable given the amount of networks that they've connected to throughout the day before they get onto the company VPN, this probably happens within our company networks a lot more than we'd like to admit. But even though the delivery of the malware can be quite straightforward, there's actually quite a few complex steps that have to occur before a breach can be considered successful. Given that there are so many steps, there are actually plenty of opportunities to stop an attack and to prevent it from being successful. But what if a hacker didn't have to follow any of those steps? What if the whole approach could be a lot less complex? What if instead of infecting my device, the hacker simply stole my credentials at an earlier stage? In that scenario, there aren't multiple steps. There's really only one. There are, of course, many ways to steal credentials. It could be just as simple as clicking on the wrong link within an email or going to the wrong website. For the sake of this example, I'm not so concerned with how a hacker might have stolen those credentials. But what I am concerned with is how do we stop them once this has happened? With a Palo Alto Networks firewall, we actually have three opportunities to prevent the effects of a credential theft. The first two opportunities involve devices on the network, where the firewall can prevent suspicious emails from being delivered and also for suspicious requests for credentials from being uploaded off the network. That's fine, of course, for devices that are already on the network and can be protected by that firewall. But in a situation where credentials have already been stolen, we need to be able to examine that session in terms of a policy-based approach for user behavior and source IP. This all sounds very straightforward, of course, and in a way it is if you are using Palo Alto Networks technology. First, you need to turn on URL filtering for inbound connections. Next, you need to turn on URL filtering for outbound connections. And finally, you need to turn on and configure user ID. Since URL filtering leverages Wildfire, our threat intelligence platform, it is actually quite simple to turn this on your firewall. Since user ID requires information specific to your organization, it does take a little bit more configuration. However, when used in conjunction with URL filtering, it's a very effective way to prevent credential attacks. I hope you found this short presentation useful. It is easy to forget that to optimize and extend our security, we often have that capability in our grasp already. And the whole goal here in this presentation was simply to get you to think about how you can enable this already in what you have in your environment.